You're listening to Pitch Perfect, the podcast, not the movie. I'm one of your hosts, and my name is Nate, and I am joined by my co-host, award-winning mockumentarian, rockumentarian, and shockumentarian, Josh.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I am all of those things. They call me the Rockula of mockumentaries.
They call you Count Docula.
Count Docula, or the Rockula, or the Shockula sometimes, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm like being a shock jock while also talking about mockumentaries, Shockula.
And we are also joined by a guest, friend of the show, Big Texas Tyler.
Yo, that's me, Big Texas.
Yeah.
Yes, just like last episode, we're joined by a huge dome with the name Tyler, who's now from Texas.
Yeah, well, he's just kind of got that, like, Texas twang. Like, when I see Tyler, I'm like, shiver me timbers, we got a cowpoke on our hands.
Yeah, I got that, like, classic cowboy accent, like, hi, I'm a cowboy. I'm from Liverpool.
Yeah, there it is.
Liverpool, Texas.
I feel like I'm watching 310 to Yuma.
Man, that accent is spot on. Well, we got our friend here. We're doing Pitch Perfect. What are we doing here?
Yeah. What part of... Aren't you supposed to do a thing?
Oh yeah, I am supposed to do a thing. Okay. Here I go. Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose smile and widen eyes and wheeze of cool command tell that its sculptor well these passions read, which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. His name is Pauly Shore, some guy who kinda sucks. Look upon his works, ye mighty, and despair. No, truly, I mean really, despair. Like, really, fully, absolutely, be in despair.
Yes, we are in the ultimate despair zone.
And so we shall. Welcome to On Distant Shores, where my co-host and I, and our guest, talk about what some might call a career of actor-comedian Pauly Shore, and how it maybe could have gone way better.
Yes, this is the most we're going to talk about his career. The movie is literally about his career.
What movie is that, Nate? I don't remember watching a movie.
We watched Pauly Shore Is Dead, and before we really get into talking about the movie, I do want to give a bit of a
Is it a movie?
It's a recorded media. It's a series of images. And
yeah, I don't remember it being a movie.
It's a movie. Here's the thing. Okay. Hold on. Before we get into the movie, I'm going to give you a content warning. This movie is, like, about suicide. If it's about anything, it might be about that. And why one might do it. But that's being very, very generous. To a very, very bad movie. But here's the thing. It's more of a movie than a lot of movies we've watched. That's my hot take on it.
Yes, so I feel like I should say, if talking about suicide is a trigger for you, maybe just skip ahead to another episode where we don't talk about this terrible movie. But also, there's ways to look for help. Anyway, moving on. Maybe you should do a synopsis?
Sure, I can give a synopsis. Though I will say, this movie is a mockumentary. I'll say that because that's not going to come up in the synopsis, but just so you know, when you're listening to me describe what happens in it, remember that this is a mockumentary with talking heads and lots of celebrity cameos. It also has this structure where it starts with the beginning of the second act and then flashes back and catches up to itself. I'm just going to summarize it in chronological order because that's easier. So, the movie is set in 1997. And at the time, Pauly Shore, who is the main character and the star and the director and co-writer of the movie, is working on a terrible TV show called Paulie that is almost immediately canceled. Then the movie spends a lot of time showing us just how much of an embarrassing loser Paulie has become. Or maybe always was. This eventually leads to, him utterly failing and selling his house and moving back in with his mom. There he continues to degrade and embarrass himself until he is visited by his guardian angel, which is the ghost of deceased comedian Sam Kinison, who tells him that the ceaseless void of the grave actually whips ass and that Paulie should just kill himself. He appears, at least initially, to heed Kinison's advice, and the world mourns, but it's all a ruse. Paulie, in disguise, basks in the national outpouring of praise and sorrow over his passing. One of his mourners, in particular, is his biggest fan, a gun-toting redneck named Bucky from Kentucky. Paulie's Tom Sawyerian trick falls apart when he gets in a fight with a child in a liquor store. The public turns on him, and he is sent to jail. Bucky is outraged and decides to kill Shore in revenge for the betrayal. And Shore is a loser still, in jail. The movie spends even more time showing us how much of a loser he is, leading up to him trying to genuinely kill himself, for real. But he is saved by his cellmate, who is Todd Bridges. Paulie is then visited by the ghost of Kinison again, who berates him, praises him, and then finally charges him with becoming a real actor. Bucky arrives in the jail to kill Shore, but Shore apologizes and thanks Bucky for his support. He is spared, and then upon being released from prison, he starts to make a movie with Sean Penn. And then there's kind of an epilogue, sort of tag stinger joke that implies that all of the celebrity cameos were achieved through blackmail. And that is the movie.
You make it sound a lot better than it felt.
Yes, I'm going to get into that. Because I think now we should probably talk about our general sort of reaction to and rating of the movie. I can go first, but I just talked a bunch, so maybe someone else can go first.
First off, before we do that, we've talked before how, like, sometimes we are rating movies and podcasts we've already seen. I know I haven't seen this movie before recording this podcast episode. Tyler and Nate, have either of you seen this movie before?
I had not, but I was aware of its existence.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew that it was a movie. I didn't know what the plot was. I thought it was kind of like, before I watched it, I thought it was something similar to, what's that Jamie Kennedy movie where he just shits on critics?
Oh, I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like a documentary where he, like, specifically is like, why don't people like me? That's like the whole movie. It's weird. I thought it was something like that, and it kind of is, but it's also a lot worse.
Yeah, I knew it was a mockumentary. I thought that the title was, like, ironic. That it was, like, about him being so washed up that people thought he was dead. And it was just about him trying to get his career back in line. I didn't know that it was about him faking his death. I also thought maybe it could have been about him actually being dead and he's, like, a ghost, or it's, like, a Christmas Carol with Pauly Shore or something. I did not think it was about what it's about.
The Jamie Kennedy mockumentary or documentary is named Heckler, by the way. Came out in 2007-ish.
A couple years after this one.
Yeah. So yeah, no one going into this episode saw this movie before. This is our genuine initial reactions, for all that they're worth. And Tyler, why don't you start us off? Tell us what you thought of the movie and how it made you feel, and where it hurt you.
So, about 3 hours into this movie, I looked and saw how much time we had left of this movie, and noticed that we'd only watched about 10 minutes, and there was still over an hour left of the movie. It dragged so much. It was fucking painful to get through.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think that's extremely justified and maybe even an understatement. Given that, how would you rate it?
What system are we rating on?
On any numerical scale ever.
Yeah, pick your dealer's choice. We normally do out of 10, but you can do whatever you want.
Well, some people do thumbs. I'm doing fingers, and this gets 8 fingers down.
No.
That sounds fair to me. This is, if I've ever seen an 8 fingers down film, yeah, it's Pauly Shore Is Dead.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. Pauly Shore Is Dead. Extremely poor excuse for a film, as I will rap on a lot. It the soundtrack itself is extremely lazy, and it feels like you're just listening to the headphones in the background of watching this movie. The directing, who knew that Pauly Shore was an awful director who couldn't stitch scenes together and was completely messy and hapless. And the cringe. Boy howdy, so much cringe. It just was such an exhausting experience that felt so much longer than it was, like Tyler said. And I just, I think we've talked about In the Army Now as the big memorial oof of Pitch Perfect. I think we have to revoke that and give it to Pauly Shore Is Dead, biggest oof of this podcast.
Yeah, this is a giga oof. For sure. Yeah.
So having said all that, we normally do out of 10? 1 out of 10. If I could go lower than that, and then also even lower than that, and then also just a tidbit lower than that, I would.
That's fair. So, The last episode we recorded was about a film that I like to call Biodome, because that's the title of the movie. And when I was asked what I thought about Biodome, I went on a, 5-minute long uninterrupted rant where the premise of it was that the movie didn't have any thought put into it in regards to story structure and character arcs. And that I was basically asking, why don't more movies put more effort into that? Because it doesn't require that much effort and and my premise was, it will always make the movie better. Now, this movie is a counterexample and an answer to that question. This movie, when I was writing up the synopsis, I realized this movie has a semblance of a plot. It has a character that goes through a clear character arc who has a goal for the most part. And it's, actually fairly well structured in a way. It's poorly paced, which renders that meaningless. It's basically bad in every way a movie can be bad. And it's a good example of you can put the work into structuring your movie properly and still make a movie that is significantly worse than a movie that put no thought into it. And that's interesting. That's something about this. But it's it even has not just basic story structure, but there's this thing where the first and third acts mirror each other with they're both about how much of a loser he is, and one leads up to a fake suicide attempt and one leads up to a real suicide attempt. And that's kind of elegant in a way, but the movie is still just abysmally monumentally bad. It's the acting is bad, the directing is bad, all the shots are bland and ugly. It looks like an early YouTube sketch. Like Josh said, the soundtrack is really bad. It's extremely unfunny and boring. And then also, mean-spirited and gross. There is an F slur, there's an R slur, Pauly Shore chants the N-word, which...
There's some anti-Semitism.
Yeah. It's just every other thing you could do wrong in a movie, they do it wrong. It's almost I feel it's almost educational. If you can stomach it and you're interested in making movies, it's maybe illustrative to watch this and see all the ways that you can make a movie be bad. Because they hit them all, basically. So I would also, whatever, I would give it a 1 out of 10. I would put every appendage on my body goes down on this one. It really just majorly sucks.
Yeah. We've watched some terrible movies on this podcast, Nate, and every time we do, I think we can't go lower. I think we can't go lower than Ernest Goes to Africa. I was wrong. We can't go lower than In the Army Now. I was wrong. I shudder to think of how we could go lower than Pauly Shore Is Dead.
I mean, the thing is, this is one where it's clear to me. I can imagine, I don't know why or how we would watch it or what it would be, but I can't imagine the worst movie, which is one that's almost exactly like this, but is also poorly structured. So it's all of this awful stuff, and then we're confused on top of it. That would be the worst movie, I guess?
I don't know. I feel like I'd feel better about being confused.
I could see that. I kind of, as I was saying, and I was wait, or would that be better? I don't know.
It would be better. Where it's okay, so this is going to be the worst analogy ever. but I'm going to go forward with it for comedy. It's like you have a pile of crap in front of you, and you have to eat it, and you know in your heart that it's crap, and you eat it, and then it's crap. And then, the opposite is you eat it, and it's crap, and then there's a mystery to it. Was it crap? I don't know. Could have been crap? It's better to have maybe eaten crap than it is to actually have eaten crap. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I agree.
Yeah,
I don't know if I agree.
To counter that, Josh, I recently watched the Bam Margera directed movie Haggard, which while watching Pauly Shore Is Dead, I thought about this Haggard movie a lot because they were both terrible. And then, like, obviously these people don't know how to direct a movie, they don't know how to shoot a movie, it's just really bad. But this Pauly Shore movie had more structure than Haggard, which seemed like a very bad student film, and it just kept cutting to Bam Margera skateboarding for no reason.
I feel like Pauly Shore Is Dead would be improved by cutting to Bam Margera skateboarding a couple times, if you ask me.
If it cut to Pauly Shore skateboarding, that'd be one thing. But I do not need any more Bam Margera skateboarding. But what I'm trying to say is, it wasn't like a mystery poo sandwich like you're describing. These movies were both total shit sandwiches. Just one was maybe a more wet shit.
Allow me to modify your analogy to mean the opposite of what you wanted it to mean. I think what it would be like is a movie like Pauly Shore Is Dead is a pile of crap that you can see from top to bottom and you know how much crap is in there. If it was more poorly structured and confusing, it would be like you were eating it and you could never tell how much crap was left. And that's worse.
That is worse. I want to take this moment to note something before we get into high and low points. Pauly Shore Is Dead has received mixed reviews, but it has one of the highest Pauly Shore movie ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, which blows my mind, with a 57%, whereas Son-in-Law has a 21%, In the Army Now has a 6%, and Jury Duty, which the movie jokes about in Pauly Shore Is Dead that no one's seen, which is kind of accurate, Jury Duty has a 0% score.
No one's seen it.
So I want to point that out. We are ripping on this movie. We will continue to rip on this movie. We will give you legitimate reasons why we're ripping on this movie. But for some reason, a bigger crowd liked this movie.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. I want to also say that on top of all the other ways this movie is bad that we've been talking about, it's also a bummer. I don't know if I ever talked about it on the podcast, but I talk about it all the time in real life. I'm a big fan of the Speed Racer live-action movie, directed by the Wachowskis.
Oh, yes.
I love that movie. It's one of my favorites. And I'm one of the few people that saw it in the theaters, because I know few people saw it because it didn't make any money. And that movie is largely about, like, Speed's love of racing and the way that, like, corporate interests and whatnot interfere with that. And it has this moment at the end of the movie where it gets delirious and, like, reality breaks down and it's all flashing lights and beautiful moving images. And there's this moment where it's supposed to mean the same thing for the character in the movie as it does for the filmmakers making it. That moment of Speed winning the last race is him breaking free from the controlling interests and asserting himself in a way where he will now be allowed to pursue his passion as enthusiastically and unrestrained as he can. And it's also supposed to be that moment for the Wachowskis. And it's kind of, that moment is kind of retroactively a bummer because that didn't really happen. You know, we're like over 10 years out from Speed Racer, and they made like 2 more movies, and neither of them were huge successes. Pauly Shore Is Dead is the same thing. Like, it is trying to do the same thing, and it is even more so because the filmmaker and the main character are literally the same person. But instead of making, like, a beautiful, bonkers pop art masterpiece, Pauly Shore made a big cinematic poopy directly on the camera lens. But it's still the same thing where it's like, this is an assertion that, like, I'm valid and I'm going to do something great that doesn't lead to anything great. So, like, on top of being a really awful movie, it just kind of makes me sad.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about Pauly Shore's career a little bit before we do high and low points?
Sure.
Okay. So this movie came out in 2003. After he didn't really do much between 1996's Biodome and this film, which is what this film is kind of based off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Afterward, he didn't do anything with Sean Penn. He was in a lot of things by, like, just as himself. He was in a movie called Opposite Day, where he doesn't really do anything because he's not the main character. He's in Pauly Shore's Adopted, which we'll, I assume, talk about a little bit later. And really not much else until 2020, when he has a movie where he has a significant role.
Yes, that's Guest House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, this movie ends with the assertion that he's gonna be, like, a real actor. I mean, this is essentially him saying, I can be Adam Sandler. Let me be Adam Sandler. Give me a Punch Drunk Love to be in. And it doesn't happen.
Nope.
Because it shouldn't happen.
7 years later, he does another mockumentary about him going to Africa and adopting children from Africa.
Yeah. Like, this movie has this thing that... I'm sure it's also in that Jamie Kennedy movie, and there are other examples that I can think of, where it's, like, art about unsuccessful actors that doesn't seem to get that acting is, like, a skill. Like, the premise of this seems to be largely that Pauly Shore's career wasn't successful because people just didn't like him. Like, even though all the movies he made were, like, mostly bad and weren't successful, this seems to assert that if he was just allowed to be in movies, he would be a really successful actor, while providing, like, counter-evidence to that fact.
While we're on the subject, I also just want to point out another thing that blew my mind. This movie was a box office bomb. That's not surprising. It had a very limited theatrical release. But, somehow, it won the Audience Choice Award from the Slam Dunk Film Festival for Pauly Shore's direction.
This is Slam Dance.
Nope. Slam Dunk Film Festival.
What is Slam Dunk? I've never heard of Slam Dunk Film Festival.
It's Pauly Shore's Rec League's Film Fest.
It's a counter festival to Sundance.
So that's also what Slam Dance is.
It ran from 1998 to 2003. It's called Slam Dunk. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay. Yeah, alright.
It was in Utah, so we can discount it.
Is it saying that Slam Dance isn't a thing? 'Cause I feel like I've heard of Slam Dance before, but I've never heard of Slam Dunk.
Like, I think they're just both... Yeah, wait, they're both film festivals that take place in the same city. That's weird.
So, Slam Dunk only ran for a limited period of time. Slam Dance is still running. So, I don't know, maybe Slam Dance is like the successor? Or just took out Slam Dunk? Who knows?
I guess there's just a bunch of... So there's just a bunch of counter film festivals. Because there's also Slum Dance and No Dance. But it's weird because it feels like Slam Dunk is specifically a play on Slam Dance, which is a play on Sundance. So they're like two layers removed.
All right, let's talk about high points, low point. Do we want to start with low points, or do we want to challenge ourselves to find anything of value?
I mean, we're definitely going to have more low points.
For sure.
If any high points. So it's up to you guys if you want to start low or high.
I say we start low. What do you say, Nate?
I think we should start high and just, like, get them out of the way.
Yeah.
Do any of us have any high points? I'm looking through my notes, and I'm not really... The closest thing I have to a high point is, like, not even really a high point.
I have two. Two very, very teeny ones.
I also have two that are barely, like, should be high points, but kind of are. I'll start if you guys don't. If you guys
please go for it.
So, the movie starts off with, a bunch of bullshit, but then after like 10 minutes, it kind of starts going into like, here's my life, and then kind of like biography territory, where it actually is like a documentary about Pauly Shore.
Mm-hmm. And
I would have watched a documentary about Pauly Shore. Well, you know what I mean? Like, it would have been a documentary. You know what I mean? Not what we got. But like that like 5 minutes where it's like, oh yeah, I was raised in the Comedy Store by my mom, Mitzi Shore, and you know, Sam Kinison was my babysitter. And then I was on MTV. Like that seemed like an actual part of a movie. You know what I mean? And then all the other stuff happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Like that moment, it was like, okay, I get it. I feel like, whoa, Pauly Shore's got... I mean, it was also immediately like, I don't really know anything about his life, but it was immediately like, oh, okay, so nepotism, I guess, is the explanation for Pauly Shore. That's kind of a bummer.
No.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, yeah, alright. It's like about him and comedy. And then, and then it just goes off the rails into this awful plot about him faking his death. I want to say that, like, the movie does one of my high points, or at least like an element of the movie that I sort of appreciated, was that the movie kind of gets that his sense of entitlement is stupid. Like, the movie understands that he kind of sucks, at least this version of him presented here. But it also, at the end, is like, he should be in a Sean Penn movie. So it, like, kind of cancels itself out.
Yeah, I wanted to talk more about that in Low Points, where he's just not a sympathetic character in any way, shape, or form. Look, I already said it. That's a low point. High point. At one point during the movie, when the reveal is that he's alive again, all the women that previously went on Springer to brag about having sex with him when he was dead, now are talking about how he gave them STDs on Springer. And one girl says that he gave her allergies, and before she had sex with Pauly Shore, she didn't have allergies. And I thought that was a funny joke. I like that joke.
That's kind of funny. There were a couple times I laughed during this movie. I don't even remember them because I definitely got a guffaw or two.
After he's faked his death, there's a montage of him enjoying having faked his death. That's really weird because, like, some of it is like, oh, him watching like tributes to himself and stuff that would actually happen, and then some of it is like a montage in a movie where like a kid gets a bunch of money, where like he just like jumps on a bed at one point, and he gets a tattoo on his chest that just says Hollywood, I think.
No, it says Paulywood.
Does it say Paulywood? Okay, that doesn't make any sense, because he's supposed to be fake his death.
Yeah, he literally gets a tattoo that says Paulywood after he fakes his own death.
I forget where exactly this happens in relation to the montage. I think it's when he's getting the tattoo. But there's a part where he says, I'm king, in a really bizarre delivery, where he's like, I'm king! That made me laugh, because it was so weird. There's also when he comes back, when he is revealed to be alive, we get more talking heads talking about him. And the best one, and one of my favorite parts of the movie, is Chris Rock, whose response is just, fuck you, stay dead.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, God.
Which, like, that was the most real the movie ever got. Like, I was like, that's 100%. If somehow this plot of this movie really happened in real life, that's 100% what Chris Rock would say about it.
My only other high point, and it's something that Nate and Tyler can attest to while we watched the movie together, that I insistently made fun of during this movie, and contributed to at least my enjoyment of the time we spent together watching this movie, is that at some point, Paulie is a neighbor to Vern Troyer. They have an interaction, and then later on in the movie, we don't never see Mitzi Shore, but we always get voicemails from her. And I don't know who's actually voicing her. I tried to look it up, I couldn't figure it out. But to me, it always sounded like she was voiced by Vern Troyer. After seeing Vern Troyer in the movie, and just the ability to be like, "Hey, Paulie, it's Vern Troyer. How you doing? You taking care of yourself, Paulie?"
They do have similar voices, and when that first phone call happened, I was like, "Wait, is that Vern?" But I was like, "Oh, it's my mom." But she is credited as voicing herself in that movie.
Well, I don't want to make fun of her because she passed away, and R.I.P. But I just couldn't get over the fact of how much she sounded like Vern Troyer, and it was a source of entertainment for me.
Source.
Yeah, source. I got a high point. Clint Howard is in the movie. He doesn't really do anything fun or interesting, but he's on screen and you get to see Clint Howard.
He's like a therapist, right?
He's his accountant.
Okay, it was something like that.
He's involved in one of the worst jokes in the movie, but also he's Clint Howard.
Oh yeah, shit. And that joke doesn't even make sense. Do you want to... Do we talk about this joke?
Sure, I mean, it would be a low point, but it's basically, he's like, Paulie, you spent a bunch of your money on young shaved boys. And then he's like, oh, no, actually, hold on, that's Elton John's account.
Yep, that is something I have wrote down and listed highly on my low points.
Yeah, that sucks. That's a bad joke. That doesn't work and is homophobic.
Super homophobic, like, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had one other high point.
Okay, cool. This will probably be the last one, I
points.
think. I think Nate and I are tapped out.
Yeah. And this is what I was saying, it barely counts as a high point. Because it's very bare minimum. But when he's in prison, they have a montage of him like, oh, now he's being happy and being himself. You know what I'm talking about? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
That montage is the only thing in this movie that felt like it was a movie. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, happy song, you know, montage cutting him mopping floors and dancing around with the dude. That part felt like I was watching a movie. But every other part felt like it was a really poorly shot, like, YouTube sketch.
I totally agree. I also have a classic Nate sort of high point that's actually nothing. That is in that montage.
Hold on. I have to do an intro for this. Classic Nate, sort of high point, that's actually nothing.
Thank you. Yeah, so in that montage is also him training to be an actor. And there's a part where he's practicing being an actor, and we can hear what he's saying, and he's just looking at a book and going, Shakespeare?
Yep.
And that made me laugh, because it's really stupid.
He's not even reading the book.
And he keeps reading the Shakespeare in a really weird... Like, yeah, you're right. That is the most movie-y. Like, there's like a bit to it. He keeps, like, he's supposed to be a good actor, but every time he reads the Shakespeare dialogue that's supposed to train him, he's, like, reading it in a really weird voice.
I mean, we're talking about it now. I was going to say this with the bubble bath, or baffle dome, or whatever we're calling it. But there's a point in that montage where it just ends. We're just like, hey, Paulie, we made you this actor license plate. You did it. And they're like, yeah, you did it. And everybody, like, claps and does things, but he's still in jail, and he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And the narration says, he's like, I did it.
It's like, what?
And I specifically remember Josh going, what the fuck did you do?
Like, really? What did you accomplish? You just sat around doing Shakespeare and dancing.
Yeah. That's a really good example of the other parts of the movie fucking with the structure of the script. Because it's clearly supposed to be building to... He has this moment of, like, self-actualization, and then he has the moment with Bucky where he's dealt with himself, and now he has to deal with his fans. And the montage should have just bled into and been interrupted by Bucky pulling a gun or a knife on him to try and kill him. But instead, the montage ends, and then there's, like, some more stuff, and then Bucky shows up. And it's like, you had it right. Like, you figured out how the movie's supposed to go. Why did you fuck it up?
Oh, boy. Okay, yeah, let's transition to low points now. We've already ripped this movie to shred. It's just so awfully directed in general. It's amazing to me that somebody awarded him an award for this. I think Wikipedia is probably lying to me.
I mean, who knows what else was on offer at the Slam Dunk Film Festival.
True.
In 2003.
I think my biggest low point of this movie is that it's a huge bummer with extremely bad vibes.
Yeah, just awful trash vibes. Like, I totally agree with what you said when you were rating it about how it being extremely cringe. It was cringeable all the way for me. But yeah, man, no, it's just a really repellent movie. I want to say, you said we ripped it to shreds, but I want to rip it to Fred's.
Oh, good. I was going to bring up that next. I'm so glad.
He's in the movie, and he says a homophobic slur at Pauly Shore.
I want to provide some intro to this, alright? Because there's at one point where I had an emotional roller coaster while watching this.
Yeah.
So, Fred Durst, who we immediately clock as Fred Durst, immediately.
I did. You were both like, I don't know if that's Fred. I saw him and
I said it was Fred Durst. I did not question whether it was not Fred. He was wearing his Fred Durst outfit.
Yeah, but like also at this point in history, most dudes were wearing the Fred Durst outfit.
This is true.
That is true.
So Fred Durst shows up, and it's like as Pauly Shore is leaving MTV because like he went crawling back, and they said no, and they threw him out a window like DJ Jazzy Jeff. Finally, we get what we deserved. Well, that should have happened in Encino Man, but it didn't happen. It happens here, and Fred Durst works up to Pauly Shore. He's like, "Hey man, you're in with MTV. Could you hook me up? I'm doing this band Limp Bizkit. Here's the CD." And Pauly Shore just like rips him to pieces because he's a huge asshole, and we're not supposed to feel any sympathy for him at all whatsoever. And like takes the CD and stomps it on the ground. And at that point, I was like, "Oh man, I never thought I'd feel bad for Fred Durst." And then Fred Durst, walks away and calls Pauly Shore an F-slur, and I'm like, "Oh nope, never mind. Can't feel bad for him anymore." It's like, sympathy is for Fred Durst. And it's like, nope, he's a homophobe piece of shit. Never mind. Okay, cool.
This whole scene is so bad because the thing that Fred Durst is doing is also sucks initially because it's like he doesn't know him. He doesn't know him anything. Like, but then he's mean to him, and then it's just like a totally unpleasant scene that ends in a really unpleasant way.
Oh man, Tyler, you got one?
Low point?
Yeah, hit us.
Shit, man.
Yeah.
No, there's too many to think of right now. There's just like I had the two high points.
You have a choice.
I don't have any low points written down. Well, quick one. There was that shot of Snoop Dogg wearing shoes in bed. What
was up with that?
Yeah, he was.
Shoes in bed? Snoop Dogg, come on. Alright, next.
Josh, you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll go. Let's talk about, there's a lot of bad jokes in this movie, a lot of like really bad like vibe jokes, like homophobic stuff, anti-Semitic stuff, racist stuff. But let's talk about the legitimate worst joke in this movie that made all of us cringe and our skeletons fly into the sun of the next galaxy.
Doing this podcast is making me spend so much money on skeleton reinsertion surgery.
It's not funny.
Much, and I have no health insurance.
Yeah, we have no budget for anything because we keep having to buy new skeletons.
Yeah.
But there's a point where Pauly Shore is like at like really low point before like he fakes his death, where he's like, trying to figure out what he wants to do, where he's introducing like where he's at in Hollywood, where he's at like the local celebrity hotspot, the Coffee Bean, or in his case, the Has Bean.
It's like
before he says has been though, he says at the Coffee Bean or the unemployment bean. I guess I'm a has been.
No,
some shit like that.
Or in my case, the Has Been. And then there was a cacophony of groans that came from the three of us.
Oh god, it was bad enough when he said unemployment bean. Like what the fuck?
I was trying to process unemployment bean. And then he hit me with has been, and I was like, "This is unfair what you've done here, sir." It's like he pulled the like, "Look over here," and then I turned around and he like poked me in the eye like the Three Stooges.
No, he didn't poke you in the eye. He whomped you over the head and stomped your corpse into the ground.
Pauly do be whomping.
Oh my god!
I got some low points. There's two scenes where he masturbates.
Yes!
I was gonna bring that up.
I was gonna say about that.
One of those he does it in front, like next to a picture of himself as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah!
I think he calls a woman
who's a porn star that he was with at some point.
Yeah, and then tries to get her to help him with that. And then the second time he does it, it's one of the like most poorly directed scenes in the movie because it goes on a really long time, and also the whole time it's happening, there's just like really loud butt rock playing over it. Like it's like a knockoff Creed song. So he's like jerking it. It's like it's like, what is this about? How am I supposed to feel about this scene?
Yes. It's a second masturbation scene, and this scene goes out of its way to make a point that Pauly Shore can't even masturbate anymore. It'd take masturbation away from him.
Yes, he's at the rock bottom.
It's just so bad. There's so many other things you could have done to establish that a character is at rock bottom without having two masturbation scenes in a fucking movie.
Yeah, my notes are, this movie is so bad, oh god, he's jerking off again.
It's like the Team Rocket thing. Oh no, we're jerking off again! Ding! Alright, hit us with another one, Tyler.
I had the masturbation thing queued up for my next one.
Same. We all had that, and Nate edged us.
I will add that he's watching the porn of his ex-porno girlfriend, I guess. And like I said, when we were watching this movie, like, you see her getting railed in this movie. Not that you see any penetration or anything, but I was just like, I did not expect there to be nudity, like, I didn't like at all in this movie. I don't know why. I was just like, I was like jarred a little bit seeing that on the screen. I was like, I can't believe they actually showed that.
Yeah, it's like almost feels insulting. It's like the movie you've been like so bad and gross and weird and uncomfortable, and now like, ooh, also look at a naked person, have a boner now. And it's like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna have a boner.
Jerk off with me. Let's all jerk off together.
No, stop.
But I do have another low point, which I'm not sure if you guys caught this during the movie. So right after he fakes his death, and then he watches all like the people on, like at The World Is Mourning, Pauly Shore. They cut to a scene of like a kid and his dad playing mini golf, and there's like a couple out on a date playing mini golf, and the kid's crying, and the douchebag dude on the date is like,
who's the guy from Sugar Ray?
Yeah, you're right. It's Mark McGrath, and he's like, I couldn't remember who he was. Yeah, and he's like, come on, I want to play fucking mini golf. And then the dad's like, can you give him a break? He's really upset that Paulie died. And then he's like, I'm glad he fucking died. I want to play mini golf. Like, I don't know why he's trying to rush this mini golf game so much. Like, it's a little weird. But during that whole scene, which sucked in itself, but during that scene, there's a man in the background. Did you guys catch that?
No.
There's a man in the background, and I'm like, who is this guy that's standing back there looking really creepy? He's got, like, a hoodie on, and his hood up, and a fake mustache. And it's... The next scene is them showing... Is Paulie, like, showing him doing his undercover thing. But they show the mini-golf scene where he's just lurking in the background before that. So, during that scene, I'm like, who is this guy that's just back there? He's gonna come into the movie at some point, like... But then, like, they hadn't explained that yet. And then, like, the very next scene was him putting on that outfit and, like, the fake mustache and looking in the mirror. And I was just like, why was that? Like, why did we show the mini golf scene first? If anything, you're showing it, like, you could show it literally a scene later. Nothing changed in between those two scenes.
Yeah, that's bad editing.
Yeah,
I did not catch that at all.
And he's just standing there. He doesn't do anything in the scene.
Yeah, no, he's nothing, because like nothing about that stands out. We just remember the Sugar Ray dude.
But he did watch and stand idly by while the guy from Sugar Ray bullied a child who was a fan of him.
He just let it happen.
And okay, wait, so then it's like he does not. Okay, the movie is somehow worse now because I didn't realize this. So like he doesn't get really at all why what he did was bad until he has the conversation with Bucky. But he watched a child be heartbroken over his death, and it didn't occur to him that it's a bad thing to make children cry.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Alright, well, we've been dancing around this particular elephant in the room, and I'm just going to talk about it now. Not only does this movie have homophobic slurs, anti-Semitism, and a bunch of other stuff, there is an entire elongated scene where Pauly Shore learns how to say the N-word. And then also says it again later in the movie. I actually, just because I'm an insane person, went back and counted it. I counted how many times Pauly Shore says the N-word in this movie,
man.
whether abbreviated or fully out. And he does it 10 times.
Yeah, that's 10 times too many. Pauly Shore is not black.
No.
I don't know if that's a shock to people. He wrote, directed, and starred in a movie where he has a group of black people give him permission to say the N-word. And then says it a bunch. These aren't real people. I mean, these are fictional characters that he is in control of. These are actors who he is the boss of, that he is making do this.
Yeah, he could at least do the Quentin Tarantino thing and just make his character racist and say it a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like do some kind of poor excuse where it's like back in, the 30s, they would say it all the time or whatever. But it's like, no, you're just having other people give you permission to say it, and for no reason.
He forged his own N-word pass.
There is no significance for this entire scene, which is like 5 minutes long, or it feels like an hour long, whatever, that impacts this movie throughout. It's so awful.
And the fact that it happens again, like, for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, he like calls his cellmate the N-word
Bridges.
later on.
Well, he doesn't like call him it. He just like says it a bunch.
Well, he's like, he's like my N-word, which like even then you shouldn't do if you're Pauly Shore.
I'm not defending it. It's terrible. The whole thing is terrible. It's just like, why did that happen again?
Yeah.
He was horny for it.
Yeah. We were watching this movie, and there's this scene where, like, the premise of the scene is that there's, like, he's in jail, and there's this, like, clique or gang of black dudes, and Todd Bridges advises him, like, tell them a movie that they'd recognize you from, like, giving him advice on how to get on their good side. And he's talking to them. And I said out loud, I started to say, oh no, is he going to say the N-word?
Before you even finish that sentence.
He cut me off with it. And I was like, oh.
Pauly Shore said, look over there. You looked over there. And then he said the N-word to the back of your head.
It was...
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that was fucking rough.
All right. Well, that's the extension of my severe low points.
I got some more.
Go for it, please.
So there are many celebrity cameos in this. There are a few other like people who are supposed to be like washed up. When he is faking his death, when he hides out at a motel, and the guy running the motel is Kato Kalin in a bald cap. One of the other washed up people that he runs into is Rico Suave.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, where he's selling oranges.
He's selling oranges on the side of the road.
No.
That's racist. Also, the scene is really just like viscerally unpleasant. Because he has a child with him who's dressed like it was supposed to be his kid. And the kid, throughout the entire scene, is just repeating chicle over and over again. Also kind of a racist stereotype. Yeah. And the kid's voice is really annoying, and it just is like... the characters have a too long conversation with a kid screeching over it. And it is really annoying to watch, on top of being racist.
The kid doesn't even like pause for breath. He just says the word over and over and over again in a high-pitched screeching voice. Oh,
yeah, it's bad.
It also reminded me of a better joke, because it made me think about the part in Arrested Development where a kid tries to sell chiclets to Job, and he goes, you're a chiclet. I'm not a chiclet. And then he does his bad chicken impression.
Yeah.
And that joke's funny. And nothing in this movie is anywhere near as funny as that one stupid joke in Arrested Development.
God, the joke where like they all don't know what a chicken is, and you see their dances over time.
Yes,
so good.
I love that. Is there anything else that's a particular low point that I have? Yeah, just everything goes on for way too long in this movie. Everything that happens for way too much time. Because Pauly Shore is a bad director and doesn't know how to pace a scene.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Alright, do we pick a low point? Because I know we're not going to pick a high point, because the high points are nothing.
There's no point in picking a high point.
Do we pick a low point?
I guess. What is the low point? This is Grungy Asshole, right? I mean, this is almost a different thing entirely, but it's like, it's way more, obviously, this is about how the weasel isn't real and needs to die. The weird thing about that, and we can maybe talk about that in the bubble bath, it's like, the weasel died like 2 movies in.
Yeah, the weasel isn't a thing, and he's like constantly saying, oh, I'm the weasel, I'll be the weasel forever, but he's, throughout this movie and the previous 2 movies, previous 3 movies, because Biodome, Jury Duty, and the Army Now, grungy asshole. complete grungy asshole.
Yeah, Biodome is more Weasley,
Yeah.
at least aesthetically, than the movies that it directly preceded. But yeah, this movie operates under the assumption that he was the Weasel in every movie he had been in up until this point, which is just not true.
Okay, so the grungy asshole low point is the conjugal visit scene from Jury Duty. That is our current season low point. Okay, so do you guys think that Pauly Shore saying the N-word is worse than...
I think it is because of the thing I laid out where he is in charge of that.
Yeah.
He made that happen.
Also, do you guys think that is the low point of this movie? Like the collective?
I think it's definitely the low point.
Okay. So yeah, you're right. He made that happen. He was in charge of it. He basically paid other people to give him permission to use it, and then does so with no regard.
Yeah, I think it's worse. It's also because that's another thing I was thinking about with this movie. This is the most recent movie we've covered, right? Out of all, it has to be.
Yes.
And it's like, it's aged the worst. It's got the most, like, gross and problematic stuff in it. Which I think makes that stuff even worse because it's happened more recently than the examples in other movies we've watched.
Yep. So that is now our season low point. Pauly Shore giving himself permission to say the N-word from paid actors, and then also saying it a bunch. Cool. I didn't think we could get that low. Ever.
Yeah. I also, I don't know if this is a low point, but this is another, like, cringy thing. Like, his guardian angel is Sam Kinison, and we can talk about the weird Sam Kinison stuff later. But then as he's leaving, Todd Bridges is like, hey, man, next time you talk to Sam, tell him to send Red Fox my way, because he's my guardian angel. And, like, maybe Todd Bridges is a huge Red Fox fan, and, like, that's in the movie as, like, a genuine nod to him. I don't know. I don't know the dude personally. But it really just feels like, hey, my guy is the black one.
I didn't read it that way, but it definitely could be read that way.
But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so do you guys want to... I know we'll never, ever, 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 ever be clean again. But do you guys want to get into a bubble bath and do our best?
Yes.
Yeah.
I at least want to try and scrub away.
Alright, welcome to the bubble bath, the section of this podcast where we talk about the things that baffled us and try to clean our soul free of these annoying mind parasites. Let's start with Bucky McChristian. Let's talk about him. So he's played by, W. Earl Brown? Is that right?
Yes.
W. Earl Brown, yeah.
Famous character actor who looks a lot like Matt Berry in this movie, where we were confused that it was Matt Berry. And he's in a bunch of stuff. He's probably, like, the best actor in this movie, because, like, the talking heads don't count.
Oh, far and away.
Also, Snoop Dogg was wearing shoes in bed, so I gotta, you know.
I didn't put this in a high point because it's not. I don't like that this is true. But that moment at the end that he has with Pauly Shore kind of made me almost a little emotional. Like, he's doing a good job with what he's given, and this, like, part where, like, he reconciles with Pauly Shore was, like, almost affecting, but pretty much entirely because of his performance.
Yeah, so let's dig down into what this character is. This character is somehow an amalgamation of what Pauly Shore perceives his fans to be. An uptight Christian redneck inbreeder who is in love with the movie Son-in-Law and has watched it 1,000,000 times over.
He must really hate that movie. Like, I feel like he specifically
dinged the hardest.
Yeah.
But, like, it's one of the better ones.
It's one of his best ones.
He doesn't do any digging to In the Army Now, which blows my mind. Like, there's nothing bad said about In the Army Now throughout this film.
Well,
but he does say that no one saw Jury Duty, and he, like, dings that people that watched Son-in-Law and loved it are these inbreeder, super Christian redneck jerks.
The one thing where they really go after In the Army Now is at one point Andy Dick shows up as a talking head.
Oh, yeah.
And he badmouths In the Army Now and says that it was a mistake to make that movie, which is right.
Yes.
He's right.
He's 100% right.
He's also sitting on a dinosaur during that talking head. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah, that was like so weird.
He's just like sitting on like a plastic like brontosaurus or something.
They get Andy Dick, but they don't get Stephen Baldwin to be in the movie. They talk about him at one point. Like, a kind of funny-ish part that we didn't talk about in the high points is, like, there's a scene where his friend, who's also the co-writer of this movie, Kirk Fox, has a drink with Sean Penn and is, like, embarrassed about trying to ask if he can put Pauly Shore in his movie, which is the setup to the payoff of him being in the Sean Penn movie at the end. And there's a part where Sean Penn is supposed to be super drunk, and he can't remember Stephen Baldwin or Pauly Shore's names. And he's, like, trying to describe them to the other guy who already knows who he's talking about because he brought them up. And that's the most talk about Stephen Baldwin we get in the movie.
Yeah, so I think what strikes most about the character of Bucky McChristian is it makes everything that Paulie's doing seem incredibly tone deaf, because he acknowledges that he has fans and little kids who love him as the Weasel, or just him as an actor, and then turns him into this really disgusting character. That's like, remember when we watched Biodome and we're like, that's what boomers think of millennials, or that you're Blood and Doyle to us. And it's like, to Pauly Shore, we're Bucky McChristian for liking the Weasel.
Yeah, I sympathize with the movie's idea that he can't be the Weasel, and that the Weasel was like this artificial thing, and he needs to move beyond it. And like, most of the movie is very negative about the idea of the Weasel. I think that end scene where they reconcile is like supposed to be him making peace with it and understanding that people like it.
Yeah.
But it's one scene at the very end of the movie. But it's also like, it's the only example of a fan. The only example of fans we get in this movie that's about his career are that guy and his family, and then that one crying kid. Everyone else is supposed to be, like, faking their appreciation for him, or they just outright hate him.
Yeah. We get that thing at the end, and he's like, I'm going to move on from being the Weasel. And then again, like, we think about, like, his actual career where he doesn't really do that. And it's like, you're just disparaging your fans for no reason at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like kind of mean-spirited.
He's extremely mean-spirited. And like, it's part of the reason that like you don't feel any sympathy for this character, who doesn't even appreciate what he has and doesn't ever learn to.
Yeah.
Also, I felt attacked when Bucky McChristian said that he was Pauly Shore's #1 fan.
Oh, he did do that.
He did do that, and I felt attacked. I felt very attacked.
Also, I want to point out just a little highlight of a character in this movie. They're showing Bucky's entire family at one point when they're interviewing him about being Pauly Shore's biggest fans on the news. They give the microphone to Grandpa, like the grandpa of the family, like, what's your favorite movie? And he's like, Son-in-Law. He, like,
oh boy.
Just like fucking barely gets that out. Son-in-law! Like, why?
Alright, I don't want to harp on this forever. I do want to talk about one thing that kind of like falls into it, and then I'll let you guys do your thing. But real quick, I just want to say part of this is like we're supposed to feel something. At least the movie wants us to feel something for Pauly Shore being pigeonholed into the Weasel, even though he's not really pigeonholed into being the Weasel because he wasn't the Weasel. Anyway, when Pauly Shore sees Vern Troyer and is like trying to talk to Vern Troyer about like helping him out, Pauly Shore does the pigeonholing to Vern Troyer, where he just like says, "Hey, what about the things you're doing? I loved it. Oh, behave, so good." And it's like there's no like the movie's not learning its own lesson.
To be fair, that's not really what he's doing, because Vern Troyer hasn't, at this point in the timeline, hasn't been in an Austin Powers movie. He's just been cast in the next one that hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
To kind of add on to what Josh is saying, though, he does do that to Todd Bridges when he brings up the Willis thing.
Yes.
Ooh,
but
yeah.
But that's more of him, I feel like, having like the shared experience of Todd Bridges being constantly asked to say, "What you talking about, Willis?" or, you know, and then the Weasel. You know what I mean? Like the comparison of being pigeonholed into that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. I want to talk about something weird in this movie. I want to talk about Sam Kinison.
Okay, good.
This movie has a very, intense reverence for him, and he appears as this guardian angel, mentor figure to Pauly Shore. And the movie, is so in awe of him. It treats Sam Kinison the way that Preacher treats John Wayne. But the difference is that Jesse Custer is a fictional character. Pauly Shore is a real person, and so is Sam Kinison. And it feels really weird, even if you had a personal relationship with someone, to take a dead person and have them show up in your movie and talk about how great you are and how they think you're cool.
Yeah, that's not good.
It just feels really weird. I'm not sure, again, they knew each other in real life, so obviously he has a better understanding of what this dude would want than anyone else, but I can't help but think that it feels kind of, ghoulish.
Yeah, it's really divorced from, the Bill and Ted thing, right? Where, if you bring back a historical figure out of time and they're congratulating you, it could be seen as more of a joke. But if you bring back, someone who's, you've had a personal relationship with who's passed away, and then do something like that, it is definitely, has that feeling more ghoulishness than anything else.
In the first scene, it's, weird, but it's, I kind of get it more. He shows up, and it's, he's, just be dead, dying's cool, I'm partying in the afterlife. And it's okay, this is the most important dead person. The biggest loss in his life was this dude. So when he's at his lowest, it's represented as that guy calling him towards annihilation. Okay. But then he shows up again and he's actually I'm real and I'm an angel. And then he just starts talking about how Pauly Shore is going to be an amazing actor. And it's that's where it starts to feel really weird because it's just a dead guy cutting a promo about how great you are. And he doesn't get it. He's dead.
Yeah.
We have no idea if he felt that way. And it's not true.
Yep.
Also, I just want to go on record and say, Sam Kinison sucks.
Yeah. You mentioned that when we were watching. You were Sam Kinison's not funny. And we all basically agreed. And I was man, people really love this dude and his comedy. So between us watching the movie and recording it, I tried to watch some of his stand-up stuff, on YouTube, and I was man, this isn't good. I don't get this. He's just yelling a lot.
A lot of it's just misogyny, and it's yelling, and it's
yeah.
It really sucks, because, I remember, being a kid, and you started learning about these older comedians and stuff like that, and I definitely at some point was yeah, Sam Kinison, funny, he yells, I don't think I ever really watched a lot of his stand-up, but I knew who he was. And then a couple years ago, I was at a thrift store or a flea market or something, and I found a CD that was Sam Kinison. And I was it was mixes of stand-ups and some stand-up bits, and I think it had some how he did that Wild Thing music video or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it had some music on there. And I listened to it, and I seriously got, I got to the second track, I was this is fucking terrible. I don't know how anyone likes this or even defends it. It's not good.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. It's also really weird to me that it's his, fucking guardian angel Obi-Wan figure is Sam Kinison, but the thing that he guides him to is being an actor, and not to getting back into stand-up, which would make more sense. Sam Kinison is a stand-up comedian. He was he's in Back to School, but he was not an actor.
Yeah, he's in 2 or 3 movies, yeah.
I don't understand why that... this movie should have been about him being oh, I need to get back to my roots and do stand-up comedy again. But it's no, I need to go even farther from my roots and be a serious actor?
Yeah. It's baffling.
That's just Pauly Shore not having any self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, none. No self-awareness, ever.
And I think that's really highlighted in the scene where he's definitely I feel this was the truest moment of the movie for Pauly Shore. Him complaining that he should be Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah.
He really thinks that he deserved those roles and stuff like that. Yeah, why shouldn't he be Adam Sandler? Why isn't he Adam Sandler?
The sense of entitlement is just insane.
Yeah. And the fact that he got Adam Sandler to do the voice, I was a little baffled. I thought that surely that had to be someone else doing the voice. But
I did too. Immediately I started looking it up because I was like, it can't be Adam Sandler. But I was like, after the first couple lines, I was like, it really sounds like him.
Yeah, I had to look it up during that
But
scene.
that scene of him being haunted by the ghost of Adam Sandler when he's in solitary confinement, we all were like, no way. It can't be.
I mean, this really, if anybody comes out of this movie looking good, it's Adam Sandler. You watch this, you're like, you know what? He really did deserve to be much more successful than Pauly Shore. He's much better. There's not an Adam Sandler movie I can think of that's quite as bad as this. And he definitely hasn't done anything as self-indulgent as this.
That's amazing that you say that, Nate, because I know fully well that you have seen the movie Pixels.
Pixels is a better movie than this.
Wild.
I would watch Pixels again over this.
I haven't seen Pixels, and I'll go ahead and say Pixels is a better movie than this.
Alright. Yeah, so I got some other stuff. Do you guys got other baffling stuff?
There's a part where he brags about how soft his butt is.
Yeah, so there's a whole scene with him getting a prostitute where she comes over and he realizes he doesn't have any money and he tries to give her $83 and then she's like, screw that, and tries to leave. And then he says, wait, I'm soft. Come feel me. My skin is soft. And then he pulls out his butt and he's like, wait, my butt is soft. And then she jokingly rubs his butt for a little bit. And then leaves after smacking him.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, and he did upgrade it from $83 to $84, and they do make a callback to that later in the movie.
Yeah, they do a thing where he goes to the hotel and he offers them $84, and that's supposed to be all the money he has, right? And then they do the montage of him going around being excited that everybody thinks that he's dead. He does a bunch of shit, get a tattoo. And ride a mechanical bull, and all this other stuff that, would cost money. And a plot point is that he doesn't have any money.
I forgot about the mechanical bull.
Also, I don't know if this is a high point or a low point or a weird thing, but when he sells his house, he sells it to Carrot Top, who shows up and then dunks on him for, a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And it's also, that's kind of, why doesn't he just be Carrot Top? Carrot Top doesn't have enough money to buy his house because he's in movies people like. Carrot Top's in one movie that I don't think was successful. Carrot Top does shows and has residencies and casinos and shit. He could just do that. People would, if you have a name that people recognize, they'll go see you in Vegas or whatever. But I guess that would require him to be the Weasel, and he doesn't want to be the Weasel.
Yeah, I think that's got to be what that is. Is Carrot Top is his Weasel.
Yeah.
Okay, do you guys want to talk about how Ben Stiller and Bill Maher are portrayed as being BFFs?
Yeah, Ben Stiller calls Bill Maher on the phone at night just to talk about how much they think Pauly Shore sucks.
There's an evil villain origin story for Bill Maher where he's God, I hate America in this movie. And it's foreboding into the political future of how much he's going to suck.
It was also took me that he shows up and it was a weird thing for me where it was I recognize this man, but who the fuck is this? Because I had forgotten what Bill Maher used to look like with his Floby haircut. So it was one of those things where it's I almost recognize, and then I was oh, okay, no, never mind, that's who that is. Ben Stiller says that Meet the Parents is a son-in-law ripoff in this movie.
Well, he says it because he's getting paid to say it.
Yeah, I know, but it's
well, he's being blackmailed.
It's not true at all.
Any movie that came out after Son-in-Law that has somebody meeting an in-law is a ripoff of Son-in-Law.
Yeah, that's basically true. You're right.
That's how movies work.
I apologize to Ben Stiller and Pauly Shore.
Don't apologize to Ben Stiller. He's best friends with Bill Maher.
I wonder... The question is, are the movies versions of these men such good friends that he would just call them about whatever? Or did he think about, all the numbers he knows, and he goes, you know who would be the best person to talk shit about Pauly Shore with? Bill Maher.
Yeah. Weird choice. You guys got other ones?
Let's see.
I was gonna ask, what's the weirdest cameo in this movie? A lot of cameos. Who do you think is the weirdest?
Weirdest cameo.
I mean, I feel like Adam Sandler, right? Because it just doesn't feel natural.
I think it's just surprising that he was in it. But there were a ton of people. Oprah was in this.
Oprah was in this.
Or
See,
not
okay,
Oprah.
so here's what happened.
Wait, Whoopi Goldberg. I don't think Oprah was. Whoopi Goldberg was.
Wait, was? Okay, then you've totally, like, gaslit me into thinking Oprah was... Because I have, like, an image in my head of Oprah being in the movie, but you're right, that can't possibly be true.
No, it's Whoopi Goldberg. And Tyler just outed himself as being canceled.
I'm outed as being canceled. Oprah, Whoopi, they have, like, I mix up their names a lot.
They're both on daytime TV.
Yeah.
Ellen's also in it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of comedy people. The thing is, very early on, there's like a Jadakiss cameo.
It's Ja Rule.
It's Ja Rule. Oh my god, I'm racist too. Cut this out, Josh.
Nope. Everybody in the club getting canceled.
There's a, like, where I was like, what the fuck? What is this movie? And then after that, none of them could surprise me. Yeah. No. They're all kind of weird. I mean, that's why the joke at the end is that it's blackmail. But some people are some famous people are cameos. And then some people are just in the movie. Jason Mewes and Clint Howard are just characters in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's like, I know who those guys are. Like, are these dudes just identical to Clint Howard and Jason Mewes? That's weird, because those two guys are very distinctive looking.
Specifically Clint Howard.
Especially Clint Howard.
There was one point during the Jason Mewes scene where for a second you see the guy that played Russell in Biodome, Taylor Negron. I was like, oh, it's Taylor Negron. And then, like, that's it. You just see him for a second.
Yeah, you said that, and I missed it. I didn't see it, and I didn't go back to rewind, so I was like, I wasn't sure if you were fucking around or if he was actually in it.
Yeah, he's just literally in the audience drinking a beer in a beanie in the Jason Mewes thing, and that's it. It was so weird.
Dr. Dre had a good cameo.
Yeah, he's basically says that he just smoked his weed.
Smoked his weed and stole his girl.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of any cameo that I thought was like really baffling. One that sticks out to me though is Tommy Chong coming on and saying how just Pauly Shore just stole his bit. And I thought that was pretty good.
I mean, it's true.
It's 100% true.
It's not weird that he would be in the movie, but it is weird how he's deployed. Because this movie has a pretty clear Being John Malkovich reference. Because it, like, opens with him being friends with Charlie Sheen. Which has to be a reference to Being John Malkovich, right?
I mean, I would think so.
It's been forever since I've seen Being John Malkovich. Is Charlie Sheen heavily featured?
Charlie Sheen is John Malkovich's best friend in that movie.
Really? It's been so long since I've seen that movie. I gotta rewatch.
Yeah, it's just like, I think the idea was they wanted to cast somebody, like, who would be the person you would least expect to be John Malkovich's friend. And they cast Charlie Sheen. And, like, he's pretty good in the movie. He's not in a lot of it. But yeah, I feel like because it's like, oh, these are both movies where, like, a famous guy is playing himself and he's inexplicably friends with Charlie Sheen.
It's really funny that he's friends with Charlie Sheen, right? Because we're watching this movie in 2021 and we're like, oof, Charlie Sheen's gonna go through a similar thing.
But also, there's a recurring thing where he asks people if there's any roles in their movie for him. But, like, what movie is Charlie Sheen doing at this point that he's trying to get into?
You said that this movie takes place in 1997, right?
Yeah.
So let's see.
Like, if it was a couple of years later, it'd be funny if he was trying to get into being John Malkovich. But that's, like, 2 or 3 years later, so I don't think that would be the case.
In 1997, Charlie Sheen was in the movie Money Talks, the movie Shadow Conspiracy, and the movie Bad Day on the Block.
Okay. I mean, Money Talks is the only one of those that I have any awareness of, because that's like a Chris Tucker movie. And Brett Ratner directed it.
None of these movies are like things that really exist, if you ask me.
It has to be Money Talks. He has to be trying to get into that, I think. But yeah, okay. Do we have anything else? What else is baffling about this movie? I mean, I feel like a lot of this movie is baffling.
I got 3 more. So I'll just...
Yeah, 3 more?
Yeah, I'll go through them real quick, I promise. There's a scene that I'm sure both of you have blocked out of your memory at this point. but I just need to point out because it's like relevant to the plot of the movie somehow. All right, so there's this guy who I can't identify. I've tried to look up their name and I can't figure it out. But he
Pauly
has
Shore.
he has a relationship to Pauly Shore where he's like his manager or some shit. I don't really know because he's in this and he's also in Pauly Shore's short-lived 2005-ish show Minding the Store. And there's a scene where they're like celebrating Pauly Shore's sitcom on Fox, I think it was. And this person goes into this dumb girl who we don't really get introduced to or know that has a slinky in her hand. And he's let me take you home. And she's like, I don't know, my mom's coming to pick me up. And he's like, no, I'll take you home. I can do this. And then he like kisses her ear and she's like, okay. And then feels very predatory overall.
Oh, I'm sure that's what it was. I forgot that he took her home. I definitely remember her holding a slinky.
Well, it's paid off later, where, like, at some point, like, I think he's the one that goes to drive off to get Pauly Shore out of jail, and he's with the girl again, and she's, like, doing something that's, like, showing off her being ditzy, and he's like, man, she's hot, but she's dumb as hell.
But, wait, isn't that Tom Sizemore?
Is that Tom Sizemore? Okay. Thank you.
Tom Sizemore and Michael Madsen are both in this movie and get confused for each other?
Yes, that's it. Michael Madsen also, we can't talk about the Michael Madsen cameo in this movie. Just real quickly.
Tell us about I don't really remember it, except that it's also involves the joke of him getting confused for Tom Sizemore.
Tyler, do you remember this at all?
That's when Paulie's undercover, but inexplicably doing a photo shoot with a bunch of hot models?
Yes.
Showing off his new Pollywood tattoo?
Yeah, who is he doing it? First off, how did he get money for a photo shoot? Second off, who is he doing it for?
Why is he doing it at
Why? Yeah.
It just happens.
Michael Madsen shows up with like some girl on his arm. And Pauly Shore's like, oh my god, you're Michael Madsen. Come and join us. And they do a photo shoot together with like a bunch of women. And then Michael Madsen leaves with a different girl than the one he came in with. And Pauly Shore's like, hey, you're leaving with a different girl. He's like, yeah, they're all the same. And just walks off.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm not surprised I don't remember that. What? Why?
It just happened.
I just remember seeing Michael Madsen and go, oh, he is in this movie. Because they make that comment about Tom Sizemore earlier, and they're like, you're that weird guy. And he goes, no, that's Michael Madsen.
And then Michael Madsen does show up, and he is that weird guy.
The whole part, like, they don't know at all what to do once he's faked his death. Like, I don't think they understand, like, it has to be a good thing for him because he has to be upset when he is found out. But they're like, what does he do when he's fake dead? And they don't know, so just like a bunch of weird shit happens, mostly in a montage.
To let the good times roll.
Yeah. Why isn't that the song? I have that in my notes, too. I have it, like, underlined.
The song choices were so strange, because, like, the opening, like, this is the biography of my life song was that Poison song, I Want Action. And they show, like, really young Pauly Shore, and it's like, I want action tonight. It's like, this is weird.
She thought that was kind of fine. I think if I had to pick any point of this movie where a song felt okay with what was happening on screen, it'd be that.
There was an Oingo Boingo song on the soundtrack, too.
Yeah, I guess, but it's still, like, it's fine. Because it's like, oh, it's an upbeat song. He went, like, action, I guess. He's yearning to be a star or whatever. But it's also, like, still not anywhere. Like, if I had to pick the song to put in that scene, that would be nowhere on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was a bad choice. Like, it kind of worked with that scene. But it was just like, when it came on, I was like, oh, that's a song choice for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, you know what's a high point of this movie?
Oh, okay.
That we totally skipped?
What did we skip?
Brendan Fraser's not in it.
So the high point is that Brendan Fraser isn't in it.
Yeah, he didn't get tainted by this movie.
Because that would have made me sad.
Yeah.
For a second, I was like, wait, how is that a high? And I was like, you know what, yeah.
Tyler, do you know about those secret Brendan Fraser cameos over time?
The secret Brendan Fraser cameos? I know that he's in Son-in-Law.
He's in Son-in-Law, and he's in the Army now.
I didn't know he was in the Army now.
Yeah, he just has... Yeah. He has a cameo as Linkovich Chomsky in both of those movies.
What happens in the Army now with him?
He's just like they're like in the mess hall or something, and he's just like there, but he's in an army uniform, and his like name tag says Link.
Oh.
Which sucks, because I don't want Link to have joined the army.
Yeah. It's all bad, but I guess it is refreshing to know that he didn't stoop so low as to be into Pauly Shore Is Dead.
Yeah. They mention him, like, very briefly, during a scene that's also kind of homophobic, where he's talking to two gay guys in the prison.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very stereotypical. And they bring up Brendan Fraser and get, like, wrong the movie that he's in and get hung up on thinking that he was in Tarzan.
Oh, yeah. And then
right.
He says George of the Jungle.
But that's the most Fraser that we get. No Sean Astin either, which, like, at this point, right, 2004, like, he's been in or is currently in Lord of the Rings, so...
Brendan Fraser was probably doing the Mummy movies at that point.
Yeah. Brendan Fraser's in The Mummy. Sean Astin's in Lord of the Rings. I'm surprised he didn't, like, make any comment on, like, his Encino Man co-stars doing extraordinarily better than him.
Yeah, he should have been hung up on them and not Adam Sandler. But the Sandler thing, as Tyler said, feels way more real.
Yeah. Alright, I got two more quick ones. So there's a scene where Pauly Shore fires his agents, and he calls them and he says they're fired because they're bad. And then they like have a celebration scene where like, yeah, we're finally fired, woohoo! And they pop up with champagne, and the dude that he calls smacks some women's butts, and it's bad and weird.
Mm-hmm.
And we gotta talk about we haven't talked about this yet, surprisingly, but we do have to talk about the mid-movie recap.
Oh yeah!
Oh my god, this movie stops multiple times to just have a character explain to us what has already happened in the movie.
Yeah,
and they're like, I can't believe insert the entire plot of the movie so far has happened.
Yeah, when that happened, like we were all like collectively losing our minds because it's like wild because you're just basically it's like it wasn't even like that far into the movie. It was like maybe 30-40 minutes in, and he's like in disguise. He's like taking off his sunglasses, looking at the camera. He's like, I can't believe this happened.
It's like we watched it. We saw the movie. Like, what do you think I like fell asleep? Because that's reasonable. I might have.
And then finally, where would we be in a Pauly Shore movie without some camera cut to a character screaming?
Yeah, that happens for sure. I mean, that's a classic. You gotta have that.
Just every single movie we've seen for this season. And that's it. That's all I have that baffled me.
Well, real quick, before we get into the essentials, I'm sorry. But you bringing up that pausing to recap the movie bit reminded me, we didn't talk about how Paulie faked his death.
Oh, yeah. No, we gotta talk about that, because there's a scene, like, towards the end of the movie where he reveals it, and it's bonkers.
So, the movie starts in media res, right? That would be the right term, right?
Yeah.
It's showing the maid discovering dead Pauly Shore. Quote, air quote.
Yeah.
With a toe tag and everything.
With a toe tag. So I guess that was a little bit of a lead, because I remember when I saw that toe tag, I'm like, that wouldn't be there. But now, that's explained.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The movie is not like... They planned it. It's just a really bad movie.
Oh, it's terrible. And then, the whole time we were thinking about... We mentioned it a couple times throughout the movie. If Pauly Shore had shot himself, like the movie leads you to believe, then Pauly Shore shot a guy. Which I guess he still did shoot a guy.
Yeah, he found a corpse that matched his description, or he saw in the obituaries a guy who matched his description who died recently. And he steals the corpse from the morgue. It shows in the obituary this dude has like a family and kids. So like he stole somebody's dad, and then he shoots him and uses him as the fake corpse.
Before he shoots him, he pours a bunch of like painkillers in his mouth and like a bunch of like alcohol down his throat, and then shoots him in the head.
Yeah. Also, there's a whole scene afterwards where they're wheeling the body out to the ambulance, and the body has a boner, and everybody's making a comment. It's like, oh, his penis is erect. Ah.
Wait, pause real quick. That actually happened, because I do not remember any of that.
No, that actually happened!
Holy shit. This is how bad this movie is. I'm not making that up. For a second, I thought you were doing a bit. That's how
I
unmemorable
wrote it down
this
in my
movie
notes
is.
and everything.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's already dead with a toe tag. He comes out, and the body has an erect penis, and they make that joke. Of course they do. And then when it's revealed that he shoots a cadaver in the head of a dude with a family that recently died, it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's just yeah.
Unnecessarily dark. He could have, like, done the whole, like, I'm gonna burn my car or my house down or something. You know what I mean? Like, to fake my death. But instead, you just shot a dead guy in the head who had a family. And now he's not gonna get buried. This morgue is gonna have to tell the family, yeah, we lost the body.
We lost the body, and then we found the body later, and comedian actor Pauly Shore shot it in the head.
Yeah, we buried your husband as Pauly Shore.
Yeah, we found the body later, but we told everyone it was Pauly Shore. Because we didn't bother to read the toe tag.
Yeah, why didn't he... Like, he should have broken back into his old house and burnt it down.
Yeah.
Because then he... Like, I don't know. It's just... Yeah, it's so dark. And then the end, he's rewarded. At the end, he wins. And you're like, why?
He gets a vanity license plate.
Yeah, he did it.
No one deserves to have a license plate that says their occupation if they've killed and desecrated a corpse. Or stolen and desecrated a corpse.
Oh, boy. Yeah. So if you guys want to dry ourselves off, get rid of all this caked on surface dirt and live with scars forever of seeing this movie, we can. And move it to essentials, I guess?
I have no fucking... There's nothing.
So, our grungy asshole essentials? We could talk about that, because he does play a grungy asshole in this movie.
And there's a lot of bad grunge on the soundtrack. Or is it really grunge? It's more new. It's new metal, ain't it? Because there's some Limp Bizkit, Stained is in the movie at some point.
Well, you know a movie's good when it's got Stained on the soundtrack.
And they're also they're cameos in the movie too. The members of Stained.
Does Stained show up?
I don't know what they look like, but I definitely looked at all the cameos on IMDb, and Stained is in there.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what they look either. Like, you could really tell me anybody was Stained, and I would probably believe you.
Yeah, if there was, you just point to a white guy with a bandana, probably. I'd believe that guy's in Stained.
I mean, I thought I saw Stained, but it turns out it was just Michael Madsen.
If you told me, like, hey, you know, this whole time Michael Madsen has been in Stained, I would be like, that sounds crazy, but, like, not too crazy.
Yeah, you like, couldn't refute it. Like, I mean, I'd probably be like, wow. I would share that fact at another party somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I would spread this disinformation further.
You'd be doing the meme face of the blonde girl who's, like, making, like, the no way face, and then it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, let's just run down the essentials list and talk about them, because that's what we do on this podcast. Pauly Shore is trying to do a get-by-quick scheme, something to help him live his life with minimal effort. Does shooting yourself in the head and hoping that everybody thinks you're dead count as a get-by-quick scheme?
No, I don't think, not really. It's much more involved. This movie is different from the grungy asshole movies in structure and intent, but not in spirit.
Yeah.
So, like, no, that's not really true. Like, he's got a more grandiose goal and scheme. But, like, he's still just as much of a sucky dude.
Yeah. Okay, so that doesn't happen in this movie. Do we still think it's an essential?
Yes. Because I think this is a totally different kind of movie.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we keep saying that for everything, are we just not going to count this?
I think we should still go through them to see, like, if there's any overlap, and just because, like, that's how the podcast works, we should still go through it.
Yeah, we have to try to learn something. Okay, is he a 90s slacker?
No, I don't know. No, not really. He's Pauly Shore, the real person.
Is Pauly Shore, the real person, a 90s slacker?
No, because he was, like, an actor and a comedian, and he, like, did stuff. Like...
Okay. I know this one is definitely not it, but I'm going to read it off anyway. Little regard for authority, but also willing to work with authority. Definitely not.
Yeah, it doesn't really come up. I mean, I guess he has little regard for authority because he has little regard for, like, the social contract because he steals someone's corpse.
He also breaks the law and goes to jail.
Right. He doesn't, like, work with authority.
No, but he does break the law. And then dutifully serves his prison sentence, I guess? He doesn't, like, try to break out. I don't know. What if this movie had been about him trying to break out of prison?
I would have been better. We watched a Prison Break movie before. It was great.
This movie should have been like The Prisoner. And it should have opened with Pauly Shore being sent to like an island where they send washed up comedians.
Ooh. Now we're talking.
I honestly really liked your idea of we repitched what this movie should have been while we watched it, with in regards to the Bucky character, and there was two different ideas. And the one was he kills the guy and goes to jail, but then people think that that Pauly Shore killed him, and he's on the run. There's one we pitched where he's on the run, and the other
where they think when he botches faking his death, and they think he's a Pauly Shore impersonator that killed the real Pauly Shore.
Right. So the way we pitched it was that he holds a look-alike contest, finds someone who looks like him, which is also played by him, and then tricks him into trying to kill him, and then it doesn't work out, and it's like a movie where they're trying to outrun each other.
Yeah, there's a couple ways you could do the thing where he doesn't kill anybody, and he still is just doing the plan to fake his death, but someone sees it and mistakes the faking of the death for a murder on Pauly Shore.
Yeah.
You could also do the thing where he fails to... He gets so desperate that he's gonna kill his lookalike. He fails, and the lookalike is so convincing that he calls the police and goes, "I'm Pauly Shore, and this guy that looks like me just tried to kill me."
Yeah.
And they don't believe that Pauly Shore is the real Pauly Shore.
Right, so then the real Pauly Shore has to break out of prison to get the fake Pauly Shore who's now living his life but doing it better.
But yeah, there are some ways this movie could have been different.
Let's move on real quick, because I think we're already going on pretty long.
Yeah.
Grungy outfits.
No, he just dresses like a late 90s, early 2000s guy.
Yeah. Selfish, dumb, chaotic asshole, slave to his own whim. Yes. 100%. Unbelievably horny. Now, I have a serious question for the two of you. Does having two masturbation scenes in a movie make a character unbelievably horny?
Yeah, yes. He also tries to hire a prostitute with $84.
Yeah, I was going to say he also gets a prostitute to rub his ass. I was going to say basically the same thing.
Yeah. So, yes, for sure.
Okay, cool. Unself-aware, 100%.
But also sort of self-aware, but not. It's this bizarre. This movie is he is such an imperfect understanding of himself and is trying to make a movie that requires a perfect understanding of yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. And then your favorite, Nate, doesn't learn a lesson but gets rewarded anyway.
You betcha. I mean, he kind of has an arc in this where it is there's the part at the end where he makes peace with Bucky, and he kind of makes peace with the idea of the weasel, but is moving past it. And he has the moment with Todd Bridges where he's like, the weasel and Willis will always be part of us, but they aren't us. And so it's he doesn't really learn a moral lesson. He's still a horrible person who ends the movie as a horrible person. But he does kind of learn something. So I don't really know if this fits or not.
Yeah, I think it fits, because even at the end, when he learns things, he's saying the N-word.
That's true. That's a good point.
I mean, you can't say that you're self-aware and have learned something, and then say, "See you later, N-word." You can't.
Yeah.
And then finally, very whiny, which I think him constantly saying, "Does the movie have a part for me in it?" covers that.
Yeah, he is very whiny.
Yeah.
So that's half of our Grungy Essentials list that it checks off. So, I don't know, is that something? Did we learn anything? What's happening? Nate, help us.
I don't know. This is what we learned is just we have to pitch a movie that's better than this. But part of that is just saying the movie will be better than this, because this movie fucks up. The premise of this movie is better than the movie is. There's a version of this movie that has basically the same premise and almost the exact same plot structure. That is just a better movie because it's better executed, and the handling of the characters and the comedy is better. So I guess this is really it's more of a humbling experience where it's look, what we're doing here is really not that important to the overall quality of a movie later. Like we are laying like one brick that is not even load bearing.
It's like when we watched Dr. Otto, it was like, oh, our movie needs to have the main character in it.
Yeah, it is not unlike that. Boy, this was just such a bad movie. Like, this is one of the worst movies I've seen in quite a long time. Like, and it was also just sort of refreshing to be like, this is a bad movie because it is poorly made. Like, this is this isn't a bad movie because, like, some executive was like, we gotta set up another movie, so, like, add a subplot that doesn't go anywhere. And it's not bad because, like, I don't know, like, they had to cut out a bunch of stuff. Like, it's just they sat down and they did a bad job at making a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. Tyler, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think we said it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I could do Quote Corner. I could skip it. Really not feeling it, but I did have some stuff that I could say.
No, I don't. No, do not recite dialogue from this movie to me.
There's one line I feel like I need to point out.
Is it one word repeated 10 times? Because I don't want to hear you say it.
You just want me to come down to your level and get canceled as well. It won't happen. Okay, again, we talked about like the content warning of this podcast. We're talking about a movie that main central plot point of it is someone shooting themselves. There is a scene that enforces this that is very bad that I just need to point out in this Quote Corner, which is kind of like a memorial. Don't ever do this Quote Corner. But there's a scene where they're showing like a news anchor talking about Pauly Shore killing himself, and then how everybody's like, oh, now he's an icon. And then the news anchor basically just says, yeah, well, maybe we should all shoot ourselves. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty grim.
Yeah.
Pretty grim, pretty bad line to put in a movie that's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out because Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, side character shout out, also dead. That's just not happening. Boy, howdy, this movie, huge bummer. Well, alright, well, that friggin' sucked. What's next, Nate?
We're gonna watch Pauly Shore's Adopted.
Record scratch. Man, can you believe what has happened in this podcast series so far? We have been through the ringer. We just wanted to enjoy the weasel and have a wonderful time. We wheezed the juice with Encino Man. We did some cool farm stuff with Son-in-Law. We went to the army now, and then had jury duty, and then went to a biodome, and all went downhill. And now we're here. Lowest low point, Pauly Shore Is Dead. Can you believe it? It is wild. It is crazy. I can't believe this happened to us. And now, our future is that we have to watch Pauly Shore's 2010 mockumentary Adopted, where he goes to Africa and does more racist crap? We're gonna change that right here, right now. Hey Nate, what if we don't do Adopted? What if we do something more fun? What if we do something written by Boondock Saints Troy Duffy?
Are you talking about Pauly Shore's 2020 movie Guest House?
I am talking about Pauly Shore's 2020 movie Guest House.
Sure. Whatever. I'm dead inside.
Yeah, when we first came up with the list of what we wanted to do for this season, Pauly Shore's 2020 movie Guest House wasn't a thing. And now it is, and we don't want to do Pauly Shore's Ernest Goes to Africa. So, yeah. Let's do Guest House and maybe try to end this season on a high note. Maybe.
I'm fascinated by... You referenced it. And a big part of why I want to do Guest House is I'm utterly fascinated by the fact that this movie has 3 writers, and one of them is Troy Duffy, who basically only other credits are writing and directing the 2 Boondock Saints movies.
Yeah, which is wild.
And somehow he ends up the 3rd credited writer on this 2020 Pauly Shore movie. I just can't even fathom what this is going to be like.
It's hopefully going to blow us away. So, before we fade away, I just want to say thank you to our guest dome.
I just want to say I'm sorry to our guest dome.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, apologies are in order. Can't believe you guys made me watch that fucking movie.
Not only did we make you watch Biodome with us, we made you watch Pauly Shore Is Dead with us.
Not only did I watch Pauly Shore Is Dead, but I didn't tell you guys this, but a couple hours after the movie was over, I was watching something else on YouTube. And this is like hours later. But it came back to haunt me, and it just started playing Pauly Shore Is Dead again. It was I was so upset.
Understandable. I would be upset too. That's awful. What a curse we laid on you. There was genuinely a part where we were watching the movie. I think it's probably when I wrote "This movie is so bad. Oh no, he's jerking off again." Where I was like, I feel like genuinely kind of guilty for asking, for one, setting up this whole season, and two, for asking Tyler to watch this movie with us. I was like, he doesn't deserve this.
Maybe I did.
I don't think anyone deserved this. And, you know, in all fairness, Nate, when you, for some reason, decided to put us on this awful, awful journey, you didn't know. You didn't know. You couldn't have known.
No.
You hadn't seen it before. If you had seen Pauly Shore Is Dead before, and then made us do this, then we'd hate you. Reasonably so. But no,
Josh.
I think, you know, you don't have to feel too bad.
Josh, knowing everything I know now,
I would do it again.
You fucking monster.
I knew about in the army now, and I still did it.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have stopped me. We would be back here, even if I had all of the knowledge I had. We would be here. If I had seen this movie before, as bad as it is,
I still would have made you watch it.
Alright, well, Nate's a monster, but, you know, we knew that. So, huge props to Tyler for joining us again. Really appreciate you being here with us. It's always wonderful to have you. I know this might be asking a lot, but you are welcome to come to Guest House.
I think we have to go into the guest house alone.
That's up to you guys to decide. Like I said, my door's always open. As long as you're not making me watch Adopted, I think I'll be alright.
That is more than fair, and we really appreciate you. So, with that being said, truly, nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, below on a level sands stretch far away. Buddy!
Bottom line is, man, just love one another, peace and stuff, alright? Word to the wind. Peace. I'm out of here.